As an immigrant, I've always had a hard time connecting to my parents' culture. I was born and raised in Norway, and then we moved to Canada, so my Asian roots always felt distant from me. Which is why many years ago I decided to read some of the ancient philosophies from my ancestry to reconnect with that side of myself. I picked up the Bhagavad Gita, which is an old book. That book is about like 5,000 years old. And what's amazing about this, the amazing thing about this is that despite our advancement in technology, the human experience is still so similar. The lessons in this book still apply to me 5,000 years later. And that's, to me, is kind of amazing. 5,000 years, is so much time. Yet the human experience, the internal spiritual experience is still quite similar. At the time of reading the book, I was in a very, very dark place. I'd failed in all aspects of my life. I was struggling financially, personally, spiritually. Everything seemed bleak and dark. I had lost all kinds of hope at the time, and I was in that place for a long period of time, which is hard to describe in words. And I'm sure that if you've gone through a dark period in life, you understand how difficult it is to describe in words that experience. But I'm sure you can connect to what I'm talking about. The darkness was so heavy that I lost all kinds of hope. So I was desperate. I was desperate for some wisdom that would help me feel better, something that would make my life seem a little bit brighter. Just turn on the lights a little bit. That's why I was reading so much at the time, because I was trying to find the answers to my problems. Then I came across this line in the book: "You're only entitled to the action, never to its fruits," which was mind-blowing to me at the time and very difficult to digest. The idea that I wasn't entitled to outcomes, what are you talking about? All the things that I do are in hopes of outcomes. At the time, I was extremely entitled. I felt resentful to the world because I wasn't receiving the outcomes that I wanted while I was doing all this hard work. So when I was reading this, I didn't really like it at first. I was resistant to the idea because it seemed naive to me. In my head, I was saying that, hey, I have financial struggles. I need to find a way to make money. I can't just be willy-nilly happy about the labor without any outcomes. Which there's truth in that, right? There is a challenge there to be had. How do you survive in the world which requires outcomes, but also focus just on the labor? How do you let go of that entitlement? And that was very difficult for me because I had so much built up resentment towards the world. I do think our education system is part of the problem here, because we are taught that everything's about grades, everything is about going to a school so that you can make money. There is very little appreciation for the present moment and what the present moment means. And I do think that I had become so outcome oriented because I was raised in a culture where everything's about productivity. Everything's about improving, everything's about being better, everything is about how do I make money off this thing. You can't just have a hobby that you enjoy. You should turn it into a side hustle of some sort because money is so easy to measure. If only there was a way for us to measure internal well-being and spiritual well-being, I do think that the money component would seem less important. Or at least like it would be easier to balance it. I'm not saying, obviously making money is important, you need to survive. I still want to make money, but I wish there was some way to measure the internal well-being so that you could at least have two numbers that you could put side by side so you can balance the two. And this line in this book opened my mind to this idea that there are things in life where you just need to focus on the labor itself, the work itself, and then don't clench so tightly onto the idea that you're supposed to get something out of it. The irony in this is that the more you focus on the work, the easier it is to get the outcomes. So the less resentment you carry, the less you focus on the outcomes, the easier it is to get the outcome, which is kind of like a weird thing to think about. My art improved drastically when I decided to quit art as a career. There was a period of time where I had decided that art wasn't really the career for me, but I was giving myself a couple of months just to enjoy making art and then try to figure out a different path. And it's in that period of time that my art improved drastically and the art business actually took off. Like that's actually when I started making real money off my work. So it's so funny that the surrendering outcomes is where I got the most outcome, like best outcomes. But yet again, you can't like trick yourself into that. You actually have to do that genuinely. So I do think that letting go of some of the outcomes, you don't have to let go of it completely, will make it easier to actually enjoy the process of making things. And that will make it easier to find a path where you get some outcomes that are positive. I am still grappling with this idea in a very big way. I do think it takes a lot of wisdom to find this balance. But the question that you should ask yourself is, how entitled do I feel to this return on investment? Like, what is the return on investment in my mind, and how much of it can I make disappear so I can just focus on the present moment and being with the activity that's at hand? One thing that works really well for me is that I try to think of myself as two parts. There's the manager self and then there's the artist self. And I want the artist self to be in the driver's seat most of the time, but the manager self will take care of the money side. I do think that this philosophy is hard to implement when you are trying to make money because you just need money to survive. And our current financial structure is a little bit more complex and survival is a key component. So I don't expect you to feel this way all the time. But for me, it's helped me a lot. It helps me let go of some of the entitlement and the anger around it. So even if you are aiming for outcomes, even if you are aiming to make money and have success, it is nice if you don't feel entitled to it, because then it's way easier to feel a lot of gratitude. Whenever I am able to feel like I'm not entitled to the fruits of my labor, it's so easy to feel grateful. And it's something that I'm experiencing a lot with this YouTube channel, where the traffic that's coming in is making me feel grateful and lucky in beautiful ways. But I could also take on the perspective that I've been working so hard and spent so many years learning these skills. I could feel entitled to it, like, oh, this success is mine, I've earned it or whatever. But that robs me of all the joy of feeling like the universe is blessing me with this traffic. Like the ability to connect with all of you is such a big blessing. And if I felt entitled to it, I think I would miss out on a lot of the joy that comes from it. When the reality is that there's so much luck in the world. Like if you experience good things in your life, it's luck. There's just so much luck in the world. I know we like to pretend like it's a meritocracy where everyone earns their place or whatever, but that's not the case. I think that's a naive view of the world. I think there's a tremendous amount of luck from the universe when things go well in life. So when you don't feel entitled to that luck, whenever you don't feel entitled to, hey, I earned this, then it's so much easier to just feel happy and enjoy the experience of those outcomes instead of feeling like I need more. Like there's this gripping onto outcomes that almost makes the outcomes not worth it anymore. Like you almost like turn the positive experience into a negative experience by gripping too tightly. So if you're letting go of some of that, it makes it easier to just be like, hey, this is a beautiful experience. Let's feel grateful for this experience. So the question for us creatives becomes, do you feel entitled to good drawings? Do you feel entitled to good art? Do you feel like I've spent all this time practicing this skill, so I should be doing good drawings? Whenever you do bad drawing, and you put in the effort into a bad drawing and you look at it, do you feel resentful and angry because it's not as good as you think you deserve, right? Like, do you feel like you deserve perfect drawings even though you haven't drawn a lot? Have you spent a couple of hours on a single drawing and expect it to be amazing and then feel angry both at yourself and the world that it isn't better, that you weren't born with more talent? That is a very important question you should ask yourself. So every time you do a drawing that makes you feel really angry, ask yourself, how much of this is just me feeling entitled and how much of this is me actually facing the challenge? I think my life was so much harder when I was in my 20s because I was carrying around all this resentment and anger towards the world instead of just fixing the problems, instead of just facing the challenge. I took everything so personally that I was wasting all this bandwidth on like anger and like entitlement that isn't helpful. I think if I could go back and just zap myself out of that mentality, I think my success and progress would be so much faster. It would be so much better and so much more enjoyable. I think a lot of us waste energy on these negative emotions because we're taught it at a very young age. All the shame, entitlement, all those feelings are such a waste of energy. If you can let go of some of that, your art practice can become so much more beautiful. So hopefully this idea can help you improve your life in some ways. And as always, each person is different, so maybe this doesn't resonate with you. So take it with a grain of salt. It helped me. Maybe it'll help you. And whenever you are ready, I'll see you over in my mindful drawing course, which is perfect for people who are struggling with perfectionism and art block. It's a way of drawing where we focus on our intuition and surrendering to the muse, the almighty muse, just tapping into that creative energy. So if that is of interest to you, check out the link below and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. And click this video here. Whoa, there's another video. Wow, the algorithm gods think you should watch this video. So go watch it. They know you better than you know yourself. Bye.